What is up, y'all? It is your girl Jazz from All That Jazz, and I am coming here to share a little message with you guys that I heard from, I believe it was Stephen Darby. I love listening to his sermons, and I have for a couple years now. And I cannot remember which sermon that this was from, but often when I'm listening to preaching, I will take notes and I will put them in my phone and just kind of refer back to them later on. And so last night, that's exactly what I was doing. I was just kind of looking through some of my old notes that I had taken over the years from different sermons that I've both attended and then just listened to. And one of the things that he said in this, and I think it's so powerful, so simple but so powerful, he said, sin will leak your prosperity. I'm almost certain that it was Stephen Darby that I heard this from, but it's also possible that it was somebody else that I had been listening to. But when I think about that as a concept, that is huge, to think that sin will leak your prosperity. And of course, there is a physical prosperity when it comes to money and things like that, but there are different forms of prosperity. Your health can be one. Your faculty of mind is one. There's so many things that refer to you prospering, right? Your overall well-being. And when we think of the Israelites, when they were delivered from Egypt, what happened? When they would go back into idol worship, they would go back into sin, it would ultimately cause God to reject them because of their ways, and then they would be afflicted in some capacity, and their ability to prosper would be impacted. And at their time, in their day and age, they would have other people groups that would rise up against them and try and afflict them, whether they would end up enslaving them, or keeping them in captivity, or even just afflicting them by causing there to be war with them. So there are different ways that they were afflicted because of their rebellion and their disobedience to God. And when we look at Deuteronomy chapter 28, it talks about these are the blessings associated with obeying me. And a lot of it, you look and you see it's multiplication. And then when we see the results of disobedience, we see that there's a curse that's on them that keeps them from being able to be successful. It literally steals away their success. And that's because of sin. Sin will leak your prosperity. And sometimes you can be successful to a certain degree, because if you think about a leak is not the same thing as a gaping hole. A gaping hole is like, okay, there's not an opportunity for you to recover from this because there's a problem that is so prevalent. But sometimes the leaking is like, I'm able to be maintained and sustained, but I'm still not as prosperous as I really could and should be. And so I'm going to give a few tangible examples. I won't keep you guys long, but I do just want to share these things and just the principle behind it. Let's take, for example, health, right? When you are not taking care of your health properly, whether because you are, neglecting it, or because you are actively doing things that are sinful, that are harmful to the body, gluttony, that's harmful, it's sinful, and it's harmful to the body, right? Then we think of substance abuse of any kind, or smoking, drinking, those types of things bring actual harm to the body. When you think of those things, and especially when you do them long term, the way that it impacts your ability to live life, your overall health, it will leak your prosperity. How are you going to prosper if you're having a heart issue because you smoke? It quite literally is leaking away your prosperity. You're not able to work, and it's impacting you, right? You think about people who are drinking, people that go to clubs and they buy bottles of alcohol or drinks, and they do this, and it's a cyclical pattern. You're quite literally leaking away your prosperity by spending your money on something that it doesn't bring any value back. It's not an investment. It's just a waste, right? Same thing when you think of eating unhealthy and not taking care of your health and your body. You're leaking your prosperity, but sin will do that. I'll give you another example. As a teenager or as a young adult, it may seem like you're the man, you're the woman, when you can get all of these men or women to be, in a relationship with you and fornicate with you. But as you get older, I know a person right now who, as a teenager and in their early 20s, they were with several different women. And at that time, they probably seemed like the man. They were in, football team. Can't remember what position they played, but they were a football player, and they were quite literally a player. And, they probably seemed like the man. Well, years later, now he has a wife and children by several different mothers. He now has to work at least 2 jobs just to maintain, because one job, the entire paycheck is given away to child support. That leaks away your prosperity. The stress and the strain that he probably feels to know he has a wife that he has to take care of and children from that marriage. And they're being impacted because of the decisions he made as a teenager when he thought that he was winning. And so this is what I mean when I say that, sin will leak your prosperity. It's going to impact you. But the question is how. And that really just has to do with the nature of the sin that you're involving yourself with. And this is any aspect of sin. So I think that it really comes down to, we have to live a life submitted to God. And I'm saying that as there are areas of my life where I struggle to submit this to God and say, Father, I don't want to walk in this anymore. Or I don't want to keep doing this thing so that it displeases you. And I think that's the first step, right? Forgive my voice. The first step is, God, I just want you to be pleased with me in my life. It's not even for a thing. It's not for prosperity's sake. It's just for the fact that you want to be in right standing with God. And from that, he says in his word that I would have for you to prosper as your soul prospers. Meaning, like, more than you having money in the bank and more than you having a nice car. I'd rather you have your right mind. I'd rather your soul be saved and secure in my hands and your name be written in the Lamb's Book of Life than I would your bank account looks robust. Now, if that comes as a result, because I think once we start to tackle sin and how we should live and how God calls us to live our lives, once we tackle that, then I think the next step, it's able to even get to stewardship, right? Which is something that the Lord has been teaching me here in this season, is like, there is a spiritual, right? But then there's a spiritual that then it crosses over to the tangible. And now it's a matter of how are you stewarding over what I've made way for you to have. And that's both in a bodily sense, that's in a financial sense, that's mentally, that's in every capacity. Anything that God has bestowed onto you, given to you, now it goes from the spiritual to the natural of how am I stewarding this thing. And so I just encourage you to look at your life and say, what is leaking my prosperity? Being in that wrong relationship is the prosperity of your mind. Your mind is altered. You have a lack of peace. You have an anxiety that you wouldn't have otherwise had you walked away from that relationship as God directed you to. And that's not just romantic. It can be romantic. It can be friendships, right? But you have a lack of peace, and that's because you're in something that God did not tell you to be in. Or moreover, he told you not to be in that thing, and you chose to be in it anyways. And it's affecting you. It's affecting your mind. You don't have your right mind. You don't have peace because you're so overwhelmed at trying to keep this thing. Because anything that God gives you, the blessings of the Lord maketh rich, and he adds no sorrow. Like, you don't have to strain to keep the blessings of God. When he gives you a spouse, when he gives you a home, when he gives you anything that comes from his hand, he's already he gave that thing to you probably because he knew that you were mature enough to sustain it. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't still require work. It doesn't require growth. It doesn't require introspection, and it doesn't require prayer to keep the thing, because obviously the enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy any and all things that God first gives to us. But I'm just saying to you that if it's coming from the Lord, it's something that will be sustained, right? So as long as we continue to do the things that are needful for it to be sustained. My point is this. I encourage you to take inventory of your life and ask yourself, first and foremost, where is there sin? For the sake of being right with God. Because at the end of the day, prosperity could end even if you're obedient, right? We're not doing these things to be obedient. But we also have to ask ourselves, am I being afflicted in my life? Not because the enemy is just after me, but does he have an access point? Does he have an avenue to afflict me? That's a word. Does he have an avenue to afflict me? And if you look at your life and you say, yeah, he can impact my health because I've been in error in this way, in gluttony. Yeah, he can impact my finances because I haven't been a submitted steward. I've been doing my own thing with my money instead of saying, God, what would you have me to do? So that gives the enemy the avenue to start working through your mind and say, buy this and buy that and do this and do that. And he's impacting you, right? So take inventory over your life and see, where have I given an avenue to the enemy? Let me yield it back over to God, because whatever, and this is going to be a powerful statement, I feel the Holy Spirit just drop this. Whatever is not submitted to God is an avenue for the enemy to use. Because you might think it's you. You might think it's, well, God, I just want to do X, Y, and Z. But how do you know that the enemy hasn't placed that thought in your mind? And through selfishness. Because if we think of, I think it's Aleister Crowley is his name, the father of Satanism. And the mantra, the phrase that they lived by was, do what thou wilt. Do what you want to do. That's literally Satanism. So if your mind is not submitted to God, what would you have me to do? It may not just be a passive thought. It may not just be a passive desire. This is why we have to check our desires. And every decision that we make, we have to check it before the feet of God, the throne of God, and say, Lord, would you have me to do this? Are you in this with me? Because if you're not, then I don't want to enter into something. Because how do I not know, or how do I know that this isn't the enemy? It very well could be. So, take inventory of your life and spend some time in prayer and ask God, God, what areas am I giving the enemy avenue over? I want you, God, to have fullness of reign of everything in my life, because everything that I have came from you. My health came from you. So let you be honored and glorified through it. My finances, my, my income, my job was given to me by you. Every possession that I have was given to me by you. So glorify yourself through the fullness of my life. Everything that you've entrusted to me, get your glory from. Because the enemy does not deserve to get any glory or avenue to me and any glory from my life. Because everything belongs to you. So I pray this is a blessing. I pray that it really does help you. And when you look and you find those things, submit them back to the Lord. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Until the next time, peace out.